any opponent that comes nearby. So you see this whole ring right here is the ring of the siege tank, and anything within that ring is probably going to die. So from down there, the siege tank is providing cover for my marines, so getting towards the edge of the ring, so I'm going to reposition the siege tank. And I realized that engagement was a little poor, and my money is getting kind of high. But I just want to focus on this engagement right here, so you can see how effective the siege tank is. So I'm going to back away. That stuff is going to start taking damage from the siege tank as it walks into the siege field. And, you know, this way my marines are very safe while attacking. I'm going to point out the fact that what I'm doing right here, this is like very specific control of my units, moving them back and forth so that they are always within the siege tank's field to be properly defended. This is what we call micromanagement. The very detailed, specific control of your units in combat situations or in any other situation whatsoever, so that you can gain an upper hand on your opponent with superior precision. Making sure you're always manipulating the flow of the battle so that you're always in that advantage. So I'm going to always target fire that zone if he gets close, but if he moves away, you know, the siege tank will away at him. You just can't get close or he'll die, but he's going to die anyways because that zone is really stupid. So I've been making reinforcements the whole time. Oh shit, look at this. I looked away for 1 second, he tried to attack. So I got to move the marine away and just have it attack instantly.
Outstanding. Can't wait.
Upgrade complete.
Roger that.
So I want to point out that as I'm moving the marine back, I'm occasionally telling him to attack. I'll be like this and then this. So that it's constantly moving closer. And during that cooldown period when he can't attack, because every attack in this game has a cooldown period, so the marine, for example, here can only attack like, his weapon speed is like 0.86, so that he can attack about he can hit once every second or so. And during that moment in time where he can attack, I try to move him around so that way he can gain better positioning at the opponent while still remaining effective in the fight.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to focus fire on the stalker to wipe around really quickly and let the marines do their job. I'm going to move the siege tank up. I'm going to queue up that he moves into siege mode as soon as he gets into position. That's just, I just shift E.
By the numbers, boys.
And I've stopped worrying about macro at this point. Macro, and I'm just focusing on the micro here to do as much damage as possible, because look at this. His probes, his workers are dancing around the nexus. We're going to ignore this up here for now. But if you see your opponent moving away probes from the mineral line to try and attack you, or just not harvesting anything in general, that's usually a good indicator that he is very desperate and is probably about to lose. So this is a good moment for you to try and focus on doing as much damage as possible. And look at this. At this point in time, he has no workers. He has nothing. He's trying to surrender. There's no way to accept that. But I want. So you see, that build order, first I want to acknowledge the fact that my opponent was not very good. A medium computer's not that tough. But nonetheless, it can kill you if you're unprepared. If you don't know what you're really doing. If you take too long to start deploying attack units to defend your base, like if you take too long to start deploying marines or anything in that, or anything at all, the medium computer will kill you because you just won't have enough to defend by the time it decides to attack. And you know, the computer is not the most effective player because the medium computer's build order is really like not good at all. In fact, we're gonna go back into the game and take a look at it. We're gonna go look at the replay so you can see how much of a difference it makes to have a good solid build order in which you are constantly building SCVs for a superior economic advantage. So this is the beginning of the game right here. I'm going to go ahead and press E so that we can view everything on the battlefield. So here's me. Here's my opponent down here. And this up here, you'll notice has changed. The top part right here with the Terran icon is my resources as they stand. The bottom part right here is the Protoss resources as they stand, my opponent's resources. I do need to point out something very quickly, and that is that Terran supply begins at 11, whereas Protoss and Zerg supply begins at 10. I don't really understand why the Terran get one more supply at the beginning than, or actually, I do understand why they do get that extra supply, actually. So the Terran get an extra supply point like this, and don't think it's cheap. I know there's a lot of Protoss and Zerg players who are slightly bothered by this and like to speak out about it whenever they can. But here's one advantage that the Protoss and Zerg, well, the Zerg sort of, have over the Terran. The Terran may be able to build anywhere, but every time you have to build a structure as a Terran, you always have to dedicate a worker unit. Here, this is what I'm talking about right here. You always have to dedicate a worker unit to the construction of the building as a Terran. So when you tell an SCV to construct something, that SCV is on that building until it finishes constructing. So let's go ahead. That's not what I wanted to bring up. Let's keep an eye here on the Protoss, and as he starts getting close to the supply cap, he's going to have to build a pylon, which is his version of the supply depot. So that way he doesn't get supply blocked. And where is that worker unit that's going to do it? There we go. So he's tossing down the pylon, and notice what happens here. He goes up to it, tosses it down, and the worker unit just walks away, and the building is still under construction. Whereas I have to send out an SCV, tell it to build a supply depot, and he has to be there the whole time. Let's look at this tab right here. This is the income tab, which shows an average how many resources each player is gaining in the game currently. So you'll notice that me and my opponent are mostly even right now. The Protoss got a little bit ahead of me there for a second. But the reason why we have this extra supply is because we have to dedicate this worker early in the game to just build the supply depot. I mean, I realize it doesn't seem like a big deal, but I just wanted to try and explain that away as soon as possible so you're not left wondering if maybe you got a little gypped. No, it's because Terran has to dedicate a unit to the construction of a building. Protoss, once it throws down the building, it'll finish on its own and the worker can go back to working. So that means that if the Terran had to dedicate that worker and they were stuck at 10-10, if they were stuck down at 10 supply 2, in this early part of the game, the Protoss player could just get ahead income-wise pretty not by much, but it could, and you want to make sure you have as balanced a game as possible, especially when it comes to a game like this. So now that I've explained that away, you'll notice that my opponents, actually there's nothing really going on here right now. This is just a regular game playing out right now. My opponent is doing his chrono boost, which is just accelerating the speed at which buildings work. By the way, this is the Protoss's economic advantage right here. Just like I have an orbital command and I can call down mules and the mules gather minerals at an accelerated rate for me without taking out supply, the Protoss have chrono boost, which I want to point out right here really quickly. It takes up 25 energy, and it's kind of like with the orbital command, it takes up energy for whatever it does. You just have to make sure you're constantly using it. And when the Protoss uses this on any building, that building's production is accelerated by about 50% for a short period of time. This means that he can produce probes faster than I can in the early part of the game. So look at the income. We're mostly dead even right now. He has one more harvester in me, so he's slightly ahead, but that's going to start changing pretty soon because I have actually not quite to the point where I want to showcase stuff. We're just going to skip ahead a little bit. We're going to skip ahead a little bit. I'm scouting him out. I'm checking out what he's doing. I'm seeing what's happening. La 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 la. There's a seller trying to kill my SCV, and I'm going to move that SCV the fuck out of there. Okay. So now we're starting to get someplace interesting. Let's take a look at two things right here that have happened. Protoss has not been producing harvesters consistently. Sure, he's only behind by one harvester right now, but I want you to take a look at my base and see that I have an orbital command ready. While I was transforming my while I have been transforming my command center in an orbital command, he could have gotten ahead on workers quite a bit, just because I wasn't able to produce my own workers at any point in time during the transformation of this building. So what's happening here is that my income is starting to get ahead because I've been making workers consistently, and now I'm starting to exploit my economic advantage, which is the mule. And I'm also keeping up on gas just as well. So he's starting to fall behind on harvesters just because he's not producing them consistently. And really, if you're playing as Protoss and you're up against a Terran opponent, you want to make sure you're always ahead in the harvester count, because that mule counts for so much for the Terran player. You need to kind of make up for it one way or another. And because I'm constantly making workers and constantly using my mules, I'm getting ahead economically. Even though up here you might take a look and see that he has more money than me right now and higher supply. But that's going to start changing pretty soon. He's chrono boosting his zealots, so he has 2 zealots out here to defend him. I want to point out something very briefly. And that is that if you're playing as Protoss and you're fighting a Terran opponent, the Zealot is probably not the unit you want to bring out at first. You probably want to wait till you can build a Stalker and prioritize getting a Stalker out, because everything in the Terran army is ranged, and the Zealot is melee. So the Zealot can't start hitting the Marine until it gets within point blank range, and the Marine can just move back, shoot, move back, shoot, move back, shoot. This is called kiting. I can just kite the Zealot to death by moving back and shooting whenever the Zealot tries to come in and attack. And it just will never be able to really catch up to the Marine as long as I'm doing my job right. As long as I'm micromanaging properly, microing properly, those Marines will win the fight against Zealots every time. So you want to make sure you have ranged units to actually fight your opponent's ranged units. That's not to say that Zealots are useless against Terran, but you need another unit to increase their efficiency or an ability, and I will get into that later. I probably shouldn't get too much into Protoss because they're not really the focus right now. Okay. So I want you to see that Protoss has built an additional pylon right here, so he's now up at a maximum capacity of 34 supply. But he's still down here at 21. He's like a full 13 supply behind his maximum capacity. So what I'm trying to point out here is that he probably didn't really need that pylon at all whatsoever. So he probably could have cut that out and, for example, built another gateway so he could build more units so he could use this money that's starting to pile up. And also this gas is starting to pile up as well, and he's not really spending it. He will, now that the cybernetics core is finished, he will start making stalkers, which actually cost gas. But I want to point out that this is very delayed. This is a lot of minerals to just leave sitting here in the early game. You want to make sure you're doing something. Had he built another gateway and then started producing out of both of them, his money would have been very low, and he would have he would have made sure it's all getting put to good use. As it stands, I am at 1 barracks. I'm throwing down my factory, and I have 3 Marines out here right now. He has 3 Zealots, which I want to point out cost more than Marines. These cost 100 each because they are tougher. You know, Marines may have a ranged attack and Zealots may be melee, but Zealots are undeniably the tougher unit. If they can get in to attack those Marines, the Marines will die. And let's accelerate this a little bit. I want to start pointing out when I start getting ahead by quite a bit. Okay, so now he has 2 Stalkers here. He has 3 Zealots. What's up back at my base? 5 Marines behind a supply depot line, so those Zealots are pretty much not very useful at all. 3 Zealots are not going to be able to break down the supply depots very quickly. And I have a tank incoming, and with the addition of the tank, it's suddenly a formidable defense. Whereas with 5 Marines, this is an okay defense. You can probably hold off some very early aggression. This tank, the addition of this tank by itself adds so much damage to the group as a whole, that unless the opponent target fires it and kills it very quickly,